If you remember last time, we were talking how Paul had come to Jerusalem, and as soon as he came into the temple, he would go and he would offer sacrifice. And but people, actually, the Jews would come to know that this was the man who's converting the Jews and forcing them to leave Judaism and enter into this new religion or the follow and make them followers of Jesus. So, like I said, so there were lots of agitation. So they would arrest him, and then the governor there would also actually look at it and feel that he was creating an uproar. So he would actually have him arrested. Now, Paul at this time says that he would like to speak, and he's allowed to speak. And he starts by saying this, brothers and fathers, hear the defense that I now make before you. He would speak in Hebrew, so people start listening to him. When they heard that he was addressing them in the Hebrew language, they became more quiet and said, and as he said, I am a Jew, born at Tarsus in Cilicia, but brought up in the city, that is in Jerusalem, educated in the feet of Gamaliel. You know, Gamaliel was actually one of the leaders of the Sanhedrin and a very educated man. And according to the strict manners of a law of our fathers, being zealous for God, as all of you are in this day. So he says, look, I want you to understand, I was not an ordinary person. I was a Jew in every form, and I was born a Jew. I was taught by Gamaliel, one of the greatest teachers of the Talmud at that point of time, and I was a follower of God in every way. And he said that the same way that I'm talking about, I persecuted that way, binding and delivering to prison both men and women. He's saying, you want to arrest me today, but I was just like one of you. This is what I was doing. I was arresting every follower of Jesus Christ because they said they are the way. As the high priest and the whole council of elders can bear me witness, from them I received letters to the brothers and a journey toward Damascus to take those also who were there and bring them in bonds to Jerusalem to be punished. So he had the letter of the high priest. Using that authority, along with some of the temple priests, he was going in search of people who worship Jesus to tie them up, bring them, and punish them in Jerusalem. I mean, you can understand, he was saying that was my zeal. If you thought that you people have zeal, he said, I want you to look at the zeal that I practiced. Then he says about God's intervention in his life. The testimony of what caused a 180 degrees turn in his life. He says, I was on my way and drew near to Damascus. And about noon, he sees a great light from heaven, which shone around him. He talks about that supernatural experience as though it happened just yesterday. I fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to me, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? An important thing to us, whenever you harm a Christian, remember you're harming Jesus himself. When your wife is a believer, or your husband is a believer, your children is a believer, or as children, if your parents are believers, and you keep troubling them and harassing them and creating problems for them, remember you're doing that to Jesus. That's why he says, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? You know, it's very important, whether it's the church or outside, when you persecute other fellow Christians, Jesus says, Paul, why are you persecuting me? And I answered, who are you, Lord? And he said to me, I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you are persecuting. He said, I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you are persecuting. I think you can understand this is why it's called the body of Jesus Christ. The church is the body of Jesus Christ. When you hurt one another in the church, whom are we hurting? We're hurting Jesus Christ. When you gossip against one another, whom are we hurting? you're hurting Jesus Christ. And Jesus says that in this body, even if one part, you're the body, he said, how is it possible that if this is a body and if one part of your body is injured, how will the other part not do anything? It's natural that if your hand is injured, automatically you try to make sure your hand is healed. You will not say, this is my hand, it's not so important for me. In the same way, here we find that Jesus trying to make you understand, Paul, you are persecuting me. I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you are persecuting. He still calls he's from Nazareth. It's very interesting. But he's trying to make Paul understand, Saul, at that time, do you know you in all zeal are going around persecuting these people, but you're not persecuting anybody but me. And he says, now those who are with me saw the light, but did not understand the voice of one who was speaking. So this voice was exclusively for Saul. Nobody else could understand this voice. And they just couldn't understand what was saying, but they all saw the light. And I said, what shall I do, Lord? And the Lord said to me, rise and go into Damascus, and there you will be told that which has been appointed for you. Sometimes, God could have told clearly, Saul, I want you to get up, go to Damascus, go into Ananias' house. No, sometimes God does not reveal everything. So many times in your life, have you noticed that? You may be having so many and you're praying and God reveals one day. God reveals 2 days. He doesn't reveal everything. And that's why I don't like people who run to astrologers, because things that God wants hidden from you, let it be hidden. That's useless. Recently, I met a colleague of mine who was extremely worried. Why was this person worried? Because somebody had told that this person's mother would become sick and may not make it. She's perfectly healthy now. Somebody told things they're not supposed to know, when it's known, only causes worry. And he says, and since I could not see because of the brightness of that light, I was led by the hand by those who were with me and came to Damascus. So he said, I, who thought who could see, had become blind. I couldn't see anything. Sometimes you have to become blind once again for God to open your eyes, and that's exactly what happens here. And when Ananias, a devout man, according to the law, well spoken by all the Jews, lived in, where? In Damascus. And he was a wonderful man. Everybody spoke well about him. And he came to him and standing by me said, Brother Saul, receive your sight. And at that very hour, I received my sight and saw him. One miracle he saw was a voice and the light. The second miracle he saw was blindness. The third miracle he saw was light. And he saw his sight that moment. And he said, the God of our fathers appointed you to know his will, to see the righteous one, and to hear a voice from the mouth. So you will be a witness for him to everyone of what you have seen and heard. And now, why do we wait? Rise, be baptized, wash away your sins, calling on his name. So Ananias now tells him, look, God has called you out, God has separated you out, get baptized. Then he says, when I had returned to Jerusalem, and I fell into a trance. So this is much later. He would go to Arabia, he'd spend 3 years there, then he comes back, he's preaching, then he comes to Jerusalem to meet the disciples. We know that story, that when you read in Acts, that others were scared. Only Barnabas would say, no, he's a man of God, and they would take him in. And saw him saying, make haste and get out of Jerusalem quickly, because they will not accept your testimony about me. And I said, Lord, they themselves know that in one synagogue, the other, I imprisoned and beat those who believe you. And when the blood of Stephen, your witness, was being shed, I myself was standing, approving and watching over the garments of those who killed him. And he said to me, go, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles. So God tells him that, in Jerusalem, people will not like you. But he says, no, I will speak there because I want to testify in the very places I persecuted. But finally, God tells him, you have been chosen and separated to work for the Gentiles. And that was Paul's greatest mission. Work among Gentiles, not the Jews. And we know all those letters he would write, the letter to the Corinthians, the letter to the Ephesians, the letter to the Philippians, all of them are directed at Gentiles, talking to them about salvation that is there in Jesus. Then they say, up to this world, they listen. So what happens now? The last verse says, what upset them? What upset them? For I will send you far to speak among the Gentiles. That they did not like at all. And they raised their voices and said, away with such a fellow from the earth, for he should not be allowed to live. But remember one thing, they were deaf. Saul was giving them a testimony of many, many things that God had done for him. The testimony of how God revealed himself to him. But they couldn't see anything right in it. They want to kill him. Okay? And as they were shouting and throwing up their clothes and flinging dust in the air, the tribune ordered him to be brought into the barracks, saying that he should be examined by flogging to find out why they were shouting against him like this. So they said, flog him, so we'll know the truth. Nobody will catch an innocent man and trouble him. Obviously, there's something wrong with him. But when they had stretched him out for the whips, tie the hands and the legs, stretch him out on top of a pillar or a wall, and then they start whipping him on the back, he said, is it lawful for you flog a man who's a Roman citizen and condemn? Now, Rome was very partial to citizenship. You just couldn't touch them unless it's like the American citizens, And he said, is it fair for you to flog a Roman citizen without being tried? When the centurion heard it, he went to the tribune and said, what are you about to do for this man? It's a Roman citizen. You can't touch a Roman citizen. I put a sticker and said, do not be a doormat. Many Christians feel, I'm humble. No, you have your rights. You can clearly tell the people, I think this is the authority the office has given me, and you should be listening to me. Sometimes it happens. You got Christians, suppose it's working as subordinates. Sometimes they just get carried away and they feel they can do anything. Do not be a doormat. Tell them clearly, I know what you did. I feel bad about it, but being an authority, I will have to take this decision or whatever it is. But do not feel that humility is just accepting everything, So the tribune came and said, tell me, are you a Roman citizen? He said, yes. The tribune answered, I bought this citizenship for a large sum. And Paul said, but I'm a citizen by birth. I didn't have to buy this. Just like an American citizen, you're born in that country, you become an American citizen. You don't have to buy, you don't have to pay. He said, I was born. So those who were about to examine withdrew from him immediately. And the tribune was also afraid, for he realized that Paul was a Roman citizen and he had bound him. See how protected Rome was to its citizen. They said, look, you can't touch him unless and until there is a trial. Now you see what happened. This was Paul wanted to be in all these places to share the gospel. On the next day, desiring to know the real reason why he was being accused by the Jews, he unbound him, that is the tribune, and he set up a council to meet, and he brought Paul down and set him before him. So we will go to the next chapter, how Paul will speak over here. What are the things we learned? One thing you realize, that Paul was not afraid of death. He was not afraid of persecution. That's why he could boldly stand before God. And he did that. He boldly stood before God. He never had to compromise. He shared his testimony with pride. Many of us do not do that. He said he went and stood there and he said, this was who I was. My past, I was the most horrible sinner. I persecuted. I tortured them. God saved me. And today I am who I am because of Jesus. But many successful people find it very difficult to talk about their past. Tell them who they were before God touched them in their life. Right? And here you find that Paul is talking to them, trying to make them understand. But those people are upset because he said he was preaching and teaching and bringing the Gentiles into the kingdom. So finally, at the end of the day, they get upset and Paul is arrested and they are going to flog him, and he reveals to them and says, I'm a Roman citizen. Today, understand the privilege we have as we are the Son of God. When Satan comes to attack us, you should be proudly say, like Paul said, I'm a Roman citizen. I belong to Jesus and you have nothing to do with me. He that is in me is greater than he that is in the world. We need to know our rights as believers and Christians. If you know your rights, Satan can't trouble you. I pray this night God's been teaching you to make you understand that God has called you for a purpose. And one should not be afraid of anything one encounters on the way as God leads you to fulfill this purpose. God bless each one of you. Thank you so much for joining in. Good night.
Good night, doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you, doctor.